Okay, thank you to everybody for joining us this evening. My name is Bethany Pearson. I am the program and volunteer coordinator for the Everett Rail Marshall Public Library, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. We have a fantastic presenter joining us for our family history talks. But before I get into introducing her, I just really quickly want to just mention if you are noticing any issues with the technology, you can't hear something, something looks weird, funky, anything like that, you have questions that specifically I can answer as the host for the library, go ahead and use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Otherwise, any questions specifically related to the presentation and directed to our presenter, please use the Q&A feature. It should be found very close to the chat feature. If you use one or the other for the wrong thing, it's fine. We'll be able to manage it and figure it out, but it does allow me to keep things a little bit more better organized and allows us to get things answered in a much better, timely manner if they go in the right place. But as I said, it's fine where we end up going. But I think that's about it that I have to say. So I'm going to go ahead and hand everything over to our presenter, local author, Lori Oestreich.
Oh, thank you. What I would like to talk to you about is, have you ever wondered how to piece together history and visualize a person's life in the past? So thank you for joining me for an in-depth list of research techniques. What I'm going to do is provide you pointers on how to turn your family history into a novel.
Hey, Lori, can I have you turn on your video?
My video?
Yeah, so we can see your lovely face while you talk.
Oh, let's see.
We might have made your screen. Yeah, we might have made your screen share angry.
Made my screen sharing disappear?
Nope, it's still here so far.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
You should just need to open your Zoom and then be able to.
Okay.
Try stop screen. There we go. I can see your lovely face now.
Okay, so you can still see my screen?
I can still see your screen, so if you switch over to your presentation, we should be set. All right, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I know it's so much nice to be able to see the face behind the speaker. So thank you. I'm gonna go into the background now.
Okay, all right, you're welcome. Okay, so what we're going to talk about in this presentation is what we're going to cover is where can you do your research? How do you know if you have enough research? How can you put your research together? The research that you do will take you in many directions, and it's up to you on how far you want to keep digging. Start with specific era, looking into topics such as history, politics, literature, theater, religion, philosophy, visual arts, music, science, technology, and daily life. Immerse yourself in the period and experience the past. So where can you do your research? The Family Tree Builder will provide you with lots of factual records. I've listed some of the types of records on the slide, and this is how I traced my grandparents' roots and laid the foundation for my novel. If you're interested in trying out a Family Tree Builder, I know that the Everett Rail Library has the Ancestry Library Edition available through the end of 2021, and you can find it on their MPL genealogy and local history page. So this is some of the interesting things that I had found out about my grandmother when I used Ancestry. And I traced things back to probably second or third grandparents on my grandmother's side, and maybe the fourth or so generation back on my grandfather's side. A lot of interesting information that you can get from your family trees, and different records that you can get. I really like the federal census You can see everybody who lives in the house. You can see what they did for a living. And that's what's really interesting too, is to kind of delve into what type of jobs that they had in your family history. You can also do cultures and customs, how people behave towards one another. So one way to find out is to read about etiquette. So in the 1930s, I learned the order in which people should be introduced. That's one way that you can find differences maybe between now you're researching. I also learned like when men were required to remove their hats or tip their hats to other people. You can research social habits in the era. Did a couple date, or was it called a courtship? Did couples maybe only double date? Did parents have to meet the suitor? Also, are there any religious customs that may influence the era that you're researching? In the 1930s, one of the obstacles that my grandparents had was their differing religions. And marrying someone who was not of the same religion was forbidden. So that's something that I was able to delve a little deeper into. I even talked to a local priest to see what I could find out from back in the 30s, what they had to do in order to marry. Also, are there any traditions or laws? So some city and state laws vary, but this can give you an added layer into understanding a particular place that you're researching. And you can also use Facebook pages and groups. If you belong to that, that's a resource that allows you to connect with locals in the area that you're researching and ask questions. So to search for a Facebook page or a group, you can type the name of the location in your search bar at the top of your app or browser. And then you can click on groups or pages for those results. And you can join these groups and you can ask questions, or once you're done with that group, you can also leave the group. So it's just another avenue for obtaining some information. I also use Google, and in Google, you can just type in a scene that you'd like to research. With this particular example, I typed in Wisconsin in the spring in the upper left, and then I did Wisconsin in the winter, and I did Wisconsin in the summer. So it gave me images. So underneath the Google, you can select either images, and there's other ones additionally. And then also there is another one that you could call videos, and that will bring up any videos of the search term that you're searching for. So it's just another avenue of something that you can look at. I also did interviews with people who lived in the era or in the area. And so I was lucky enough to have a grandmother and an aunt that I was able to speak to and ask questions about. You know, they told me stories and different things about Marshfield and about how they grew up. I'm sure a lot of you have heard things like that from your grandparents as well. So a lot of those type of things can be added into a story if you're doing a story or for your ancestry on your genealogy. The next big one is the library. So I use that for a multiple place for resources. So of course I used it for books. And that is like if you read any, you could read any fiction books that are written in the area that you're researching. You know, a lot of those have done research as well, and you can learn things from their research. You could use cookbooks where you could find interesting recipes. So in my novel, I mentioned icebox cookies, spud brownies, a German apple cake, because one of my characters came from Germany. And also there are a section located in the library of local history books. And those are, there's a whole bunch written just about Marshfield. And then there's another section where there's a couple books that were stories that were submitted by family members that live around Marshfield. And they talked about different families and different businesses. And those were very interesting to read too. Also magazines. So there's articles in magazines of information along with advertisements, and movies and documentaries you could use in the era that you're trying to look up, or the area. For movies though, you should probably verify the research. Sometimes they're not accurate, where a documentary is generally accurate with settings and locations. So I listed there a website at the imdb.com where you can verify where that movie was made and other information about that particular movie. You can also use music. So if you listen to the sounds of music or anything else in that era or in the area that you're interested in, sometimes there's particular noises, like in Marshall, if you think of Hub City, there's the train noises, and you have to think, okay, well, what type of trains would be coming through that area in the 30s, and what would they sound like? So you can get an idea of what the people would have heard at that time. Also newspapers. You can look up old papers. I think we still have some at the library that were on the microfiche film. And there you can learn about history, social events. Again, advertisements in there can give you some ideas too of anything in the past. And then also yearbooks. I thought that was very interesting because you can learn about the academics and you can see the clothes they wear, the clubs that people were involved in. One of the things I had was my grandfather had written down as a pastime as a junior, he was noted for primping. So I looked up, I'm like, primping. He must have really cared a lot about his looks and his clothes. That's the only reason I could think they would have said that was his pastime. And I was surprised to find that my grandmother was on the rifle team. And there was also a picture that was in the yearbook that I found of my grandmother. And there was always a story that she was the first woman to wear pants in Marshfield. So this is her, actually, that was in the yearbook. So I thought that was really neat to find that. I also use maps. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Google Maps, but you can go to directly at maps.google.com and you can visualize an area. You could put in an address or a city that you're looking for. So you actually don't have to drive there. You can do it right through the map. So you would click on this magnifying glass after you type it in. And on the lower left, there's a spot where you can click to satellite. So then it would look like a view of the area that you're kind of flying over that area. Or on the right hand or the lower right hand side, you can also change it to the street view. And in the street view, if that particular street is highlighted in blue, you're able to zoom in and it's like you're walking down the street. So you can see trees if there's trees there, or maybe historic buildings through that area. And then another interesting one, especially from long ago, is the Sandburn Map Collection. And that is a series of large scale maps that date from 1867 to the present. And they have commercial, industrial, and residential sections that they show from probably 12,000 cities, I believe, and towns in the US, Canada, and Mexico. So the one that I have attached here is one from Marshfield from 1912. And you can see that there's different colors that are on that map. And those are representing the construction material of the buildings. And there's a few maps that are online, and others are also available at, I know, our local library. Another place you can go for some information is travel guides. So a travel guide, so the American Automobile Association has online travel guides, and I listed that at the aaa.travel.com/travel guides. And this is one for St. Lucia. And they usually have popular worldwide destinations is usually what they'll show you. So this is an example of St. Lucia, and this is a picture of the pitons I took that was from a trip that we had. So you can get a lot of information on these type of sites as well. And you can also do tourism departments. So they have websites and guidebooks that they can send. Most state centers have phone numbers where you can call to ask questions, and they may even pass on folklore or legends to you from that area. Also, part of researching history is weather, and some of the websites that are great resources are the AccuWeather.com and TimeAndDate.com. You can find out when the sun rises and sets. You can find out the phases of the moon, the time zones, if there's seasons in the area that you're researching. You can also keep a list of holiday observations. That's what I usually do within the year that I'm writing. So in my novel on May 30th, 1933, it was actually called Decoration Day instead of Memorial Day. So these are the type of things that if you're writing something down, you want to be as, accurate as possible. So those type of things will help you. And another source that I use would be YouTube. And what you can do with that is you can search for videos of the area that you're researching. So they're not only visual, but auditory as well. And once you find some YouTube videos that you like, it will also start suggesting similar videos to you based on the ones that you've watched. And then if you like a certain video blogger, you can also subscribe to their channel and you'll receive alerts when a new video is posted. And then how do you know when you've done enough research? Well, kind of how I think about this is mostly using my five senses. So I want to be able to picture myself in a scene. If I've done research in the 1930s, I want to be able to picture myself on a street in Marshfield. I need to know, what is under my feet in 1930. Is it a cement road? Probably doubtful, right? It's going to be something else. So, and what you see around you, all these things, if you've done enough research, you'll know all the answers to those questions. So basically what you're doing is you're visualizing yourself as a character in a scene or yourself. When I think about research for one of my relatives who was a farmer, well, what did that mean for somebody to be a farmer, say in 1930? What type of animals would they have had on the farm? What type of equipment would they have had to use? What was their typical day like? So if I can answer all these questions, I know that I've done my research. And then finally, how I put all my research together is I try to keep everything organized. So mostly I use Excel to keep track of things, either from what my scene would look like. So these are different areas that I had in a book that I wrote. So it would be what would be in my character's dining room, his kitchen, his office, so that if 10 chapters away, all of a sudden I'm back in the dining room, and then I know what is there, so that I can play off of those same kind of things. If it has to do with the table or something, I know what it looks like without having to go back into my story. So when you write, you use your history that you've researched to bring a visual to the reader. So if you want to do this for, just your ancestry, you're bringing a visual to yourself for what your family life was like back then. And it helps you to understand the whole picture of their life. So if you're not writing a story to use it for writing, you could still use these type of research for your ancestry. And when I write, there's a delicate balance between the visual that you give a reader versus too much history. So you don't want to necessarily read like you're reading a history book. You just want to give them enough to visualize the scene. And this is my historical romance that was inspired by my family history. So I'm wondering now, does anybody have any questions about what I presented on different places you could do your research?
So far, I'm not seeing any questions, but we'll give everybody a few moments in case they have some questions. Natalie, did you have any questions?
Put me on the spot here, goodness.
No, we did not.
I tried to cover a lot of different areas of thinking of different things that may not be typical places where people would research.
Don commented, I don't have any questions, but I like the overview you were providing of possible resources to use. I think it means that you did exactly what you set out to do, Lori. You gave a great overview of the different resources that can be used and how to use them. And I think that's really what we were hoping for. But we'll give a moment, see if anybody else ends up with any questions to give us. Otherwise, I think we might be able to wrap up for this evening. Yeah, I think we're good. I'm not seeing any other questions. Usually as